Hello and welcome back to Beyond the Try Line in partnership with SOCS. This is your weekly podcast reviewing and looking back on the Daily Mail Trophy. I am large. He, who's on the left of my screen, is little. Phil, how are you, mate? You well?
Good, mate. I'm good. I'm all talked out at the moment. We've just, for those of you who don't know, we've just done another podcast with Dan Cotterill on the Rugby Coaching Weekly podcast, which was great fun. So hopefully our guest today will take up all the time and we won't have to say too much, Russ.
Yeah, I've been trying to get him on since the inception of this pod. I've been in his ear. We've had a bit of WhatsApp backward and forward. I looked after a couple of his trainee teachers last year. I've got another one this year. So this man sees plenty of me. We actually worked together. Well, I say that loosely. I was down in the prep school mainly. He left me down there, sadly. I kept trying to butter him up. I kept saying, come on, trust me. I can take a senior school team. Then he left Hampton, and Sean Thompson actually did trust me, which was great. And we had an amazing season with the 15As. But we've got him. St Benedict's Ealing Director of Sport, Zoran Higgins. Zoran, mate, it's great to see you. How are you?
Good, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on this. I've really enjoyed listening to your pods. I couldn't resist the urge and the harassment, actually. The harassment tactics work really well. Talon Gill has assured me that I'll be in good hands, so I'm braving it.
That's good of talent to say that. And just for the listeners who are interested, and perhaps they're not even interested, you've basically gone from saying there is absolutely no way I'm going to go on either of your pods, not the Director of Sport one or the rugby one, to you WhatsApp me the other day and said, I think it's time. Come on, I want it. Let's go. And I was so chuffed. Mate, currently sat, when I checked first thing this morning, currently sat fifth in the league.
Yeah, we've the boys love the Daily Mail Trophy. It does kind of give the boys something to work towards. Especially with the senior guys, they're really driven by goals and achievement, and to have just be able to see themselves and picture themselves moving up ranks and actually combining with what what is effectively your bread and butter, the Saturday fixtures, because they're the most important thing on that you do. It's quite exciting for the boys, and it actually really helps us keep them motivated and focused for what is actually a really tough Michaelmas term.
And tell us about the season so far, Zoran. How's it been? You obviously started off with pre-season and then straight into Worth School and St George's Way. How's the season been?
Yeah, it's been fun actually. Been tiring. I was just saying to Rusty before we went online. First week on holiday, first 4 days, I was unwell. But any teacher would understand that. So yeah, because you take your foot off the pedal. But I think we started actually. We've been going for some time. Boys obviously go and do their cricket and athletics and whatever, but and tennis. But on Friday evenings we started in the summer term just after half term, and then worked all the way through the August period because we were out in South Africa on tour. Had a brilliant tour, able to take some leavers and celebrate their kind of time at the school. But actually, 2/3 of the squad were this year's first team, and actually 16s. And it's kind of, you've seen that really come through. Some of the experiences that they had out on tour, the kind of social bit and the kind of mixing with each other and living with each other in hotels and so on. So there's a bit of a wrench for us to leave families, staff to leave families out. But actually, in terms of it's good fun, but it's also kind of really productive for the boys. Came back, did a bit of pre-season for a couple of weeks, and then straight couple of pre-season fixtures straight into it. And the boys haven't really looked back. Couple of, on the whole, we've been playing really well. We got some really good players coming through. We've got a great upper sixth, great lower sixth, and actually some really good boys coming through from the 16s as well. So it's and some of the rugby we've been playing has been excellent. I'm really chuffed with how we've been playing. Contrary to maybe what one of our former colleagues might have said, we're not catch and drive sort of oriented. We'll throw the ball around and we like to. There have been a couple of times where it's been a bit too much like sevens, but it's the boys have played really, really, really well.
Yeah, and certainly some of the tries I've seen, you've gone coast to coast a couple of times, which is amazing, and you certainly don't mind flinging it around, actually, your back line, and I'm sure it gets the blood pressure
No.
up. But just going back to the South Africa pre-season tour, you're another school who did that, along with Kings, my old school, they did that as well. Would you attribute a lot of your success this first half term to that pre-season tour? And don't get me wrong, there'll be a lot of people listening to this going, well, we're not fortunate enough to be able to go on those kind of trips. But you were, and I remember us talking
Yeah.
about it, you went in July, didn't you? So you had a bit of pre-season at the end of term where you got the boys in preparation for South Africa. You went away to South Africa. gave them a break, and then you got them back in towards the end of August. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah. So they had a couple of weeks break. So did the staff. Although when you kind of lose quite a lot of holidays, not a lot, but and then they came back and they were firing on all cylinders. I wouldn't. Like, it obviously helps in terms of team cohesion, because each year, one of the great things about sort of school first 15s, which is different to maybe like a club environment, you kind of, there's less onus on the coach, although you do want to keep yourself interested, less onus on the coach to actually, or teacher to actually keep reinventing themselves, which is kind of a thing you have to do at club when I coach at a club. So it's fine. I kind of understand that. But you can actually build a sort of a methodology, a way of playing that you can, there has real continuity within your school, because actually the thing that changes is the year groups and the teams keep changing. So then you're kind of adjusting your approach to the kind of group that you've got. So it has definitely helped in terms of fast track that. There's no doubt about that. But we were also expecting a really good, one of the reasons we went on tour is because we're expecting a really good few years now. Actually, what we wanted to do is kind of consolidate the boys' learning about rugby, but also about themselves, about their interactions with each other as a group, and to really kind of add that personal growth, which is actually what actually in my sort of mindset, as much as rugby is important, is actually one of the most important things. I'll never forget, actually, Phil, one of your former colleagues, and one of my former colleagues who's just left, and a good lad, Sam Howard. He would talk about good blokes make good rugby players, and I think that's really true. And I think if that process of going on tour has kind of really sped that up and helped that. Just learning good behaviours, looking after each other, understanding that when you're out and about and you're on tour, you're actually playing, you're a representative for the school, for me, for their parents, for themselves, and that comes with a real privilege. And the cost is to have those good behaviours, but the cost is also to be the best version of yourself and be the best you can be.
Isn't it? I think that that lots of schools that we've spoken to have benefited hugely from that summer touring program. And it's something that went out of the game for a little while with, it became unfashionable and people were looking to short tours, or, COVID obviously had a massive impact. But on the whole, Zoran, it feels to me like, number one, the touring zone is back, but it feels to me this season that there's a real buzz around schoolboy rugby again, and the quality of the rugby being played across the board is outstanding. You've been around the game a long time. Would you say the schoolboy game now is as healthy as it's ever been?
Yeah, I mean, obviously from about 2015 to kind of only a couple of years ago, that we kind of had this drop off, which was really hard. I think, obviously there's the injury bits, there's but the World Cup that we had didn't quite kick on the sport as it was intended. And I think we've probably gone back a few steps. Like I said, I coach at Richmond, and you can see that in the men's, and you can see that kind of filtering through, and you hear about stories about other clubs, although we were complaining 2 weeks ago because we could only put out 5 teams, one of which was a vets team that I was playing in. And that's a very privileged club. There's lots of clubs that aren't having that problem, but the big clubs are rugby's still as popular as ever, even with a bit of a lull. I do like the positivity around the sport in terms of schools, and that will hopefully filter through, because actually, as much as we want to win and do well in Daily Mail Trophy, we also want boys to carry on playing when they leave school, university clubs. We're lucky we've got the Old Priorians, which is a brilliant club in level 5, I think it is, or level 6, so it's a good standard, and the boys can go in and play. And actually that's the real success, is how many of those boys keep playing. Nothing gives me greater pleasure than to kind of come across boys that I've coached. There's a lad there's at least 3 lads actually who still play at Richmond, who now are playing the champ, or they play in the Saxons or the Vikings team, seconds or thirds. And it's amazing, and they were Hampton boys, and it's amazing because that's 11, 12 years on and they're still playing the game. And there's lots of those boys. And I think, the kind of the virtuous cycle, if you like, it feels like that starts with schools, that starts at the junior age grades. You want to make them love playing the game. I think what I really have enjoyed is the game, at least at schoolboy level on our circuit, and maybe it's a London South East thing, I don't know, is it's become more technical and tactical as opposed to kind of physical, which I think is a really good thing. I was at a CPD thing last night with Richard Whitfield, which was amazing. He's brilliant, the Wales under-20 coach. But he did sort of say at the professional end, there's also just physicality is still a way to get forward and go forward. And But I think at junior age grades and at community level, actually, it's really important probably that we make it more technical and tactical, skill-based, oriented, more in just where we can move the ball and throw the ball around. You're really seeing that approach, and that comes with how rugby's been delivered in schools, I think. You're really seeing that. Yeah, and I love, you're right, there's a couple of heart in the mouth moments this season and on tour, but actually it's really good fun. And it's even more enjoyable than if you can get a win and the boys play really, really well. And they come off with massive smiles on their faces, knowing that they're kind of given everything they could have given on that Saturday.
And I think Phil alluded to it earlier in the pod. You've seen some schoolboy rugby, Zoran, no doubt about that. You were involved at Hampton for years, did a fantastic job. Moved on to Oakham, then to Emmanuel, and now you're at Benedict. So you've touched into the Midlands for a short period of time. But what have you seen in those circuits, those different circuits? Because let's be honest, those four schools play in four very different circuits, don't they? Very different opposition, very different schools. And I think we spoke recently, didn't we, about your fixture list and how you're always reviewing it at the moment at St Benedict's to get the best possible challenge and the best possible stretch for all your rugby players across the school.
Yeah, I think yeah, it's quite interesting. I mean, most of my career has been in London South East region, so that's kind of what I'm used to. And I think my venture into Oakham was interesting in terms of like, I mean, it wasn't right for our family, but more importantly, it was just, I think the style of rugby was very different. It'd be interesting to go back there now because I think with the changes on, you watch the Leicester Tigers, they're playing much more expansively, and I think that impacts on the approach that is had at schoolboy level and club level. Yeah, blimey, it's almost 10 years on. It'd be interesting to see what that is like. I found, it was more kind of, and also the weather conditions were different. I think pitches were softer and they were more difficult to throw the ball around on, and it tended to be a little bit more direct and physical. I think in the southeast, it tends to be a little less direct and much more kind of expansive. It's my experience, and that's obviously a decade ago. So it'd be interesting to go back and see it again. And I'm sure it has changed because there's been a lot of work done by the RFU, Coach Ed, and so on. I think in terms of just other things, yeah, we're reviewing our fixture list at the moment. When we started, James and I started the work on effectively rebuilding the rugby at Benny's. The fixture list was too powerful for what we had. There were behaviours and values and cultures that once were there that needed kind of just to be dusted off, reshaped, sharpened up, and that was a cultural piece that we needed to do. I think that's and taking my kind of rugby hat off and putting my director of sport hat on. Obviously, both of you have done this, and I know it's not director of sport, but we kind of had to do that across the board with all our sports. And we're just starting to see, I mean, this is my 9th year, so it's like a 9-year piece of work, albeit COVID kind of slowed it down by a couple of years, no doubt, because you kind of lose that intensity around that, and you kind of then need to kind of regather and go again. You are seeing that across the board in all the sports, that actually we are starting to kind of get our high performers. We've always, I'm really proud of, again, sort of, this does actually apply to rugby, but 97% of all our kids have represented the school in competitive fixtures last year. Like, I'm massively proud of that. And we're fielding kind of 17, 18 teams every Saturday. Our biggest challenge is actually, can we find 15C and D fixtures in rugby? And that is actually now becoming a biggest challenge. And that's with the introduction of things like football, which actually has despite my initial concerns, has actually benefited the rugby, I think, particularly at the senior end. So I think in terms of the fixture list, we kind of adjust it so that it was more appropriate for what we had, particularly our lower age grade sides. We've had to kind of ride a wave with kind of maybe some less able sort of weaker year groups coming through. Obviously then COVID interrupted that quite a lot. We've now got quite a good production line taking place behind it. And we're now seeing fruits of that labour. So a lot of work on technical work, tactical work in school. We implemented a programme of technical tactical curriculum, reviewed our kind of S&C stuff, reviewed our medical provision. And I'm massively grateful to the 2 headmasters at the school, which I had Andrew Johnson previously, and then currently Joe Smith, who have been super the work that we're doing and understanding the importance of that. And actually, it's this quite often, quite a lot of the elite sports people are actually the ones who are best performing academically as well, which is really pleasing. But again, those are the values and behaviours that we're trying to encourage, and none more so in the rugby. So I think we're now at a stage where we are looking now at, can we introduce kind of, so I'd kind of put us maybe in like the Conference League, UEFA Cup, sort of, to use a football terminology. Uh, we're kind of the maybe middle, lower end Premiership, and we now need to go. We now want to get into Champions League to coin a we're searching for good analogies. And now, but what we need to then do is make sure the fixture experiences on Saturdays are the right ones. So introducing kind of some of those top tier ones. Again, though, it's a balance. So want to walk before you can sprint, and that's kind of the challenge is now, what do we let go, what do we introduce, and how do we balance that off?
Mate, and you've just mentioned it there, and everything you've just sort of encapsulated in that conversation there is it's not luck that these school rugby programs, succeed or fail. It comes down to a huge amount of hard work, a huge amount of planning, support across the whole school. You mentioned medical, S&C, everything you're doing, but I imagine, a school like St Benedict's, you're so reliant on some wonderful staff who are working bloody hard to make that rugby program tick, and they're worth their weight in gold, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can't speak highly enough of our staff. We got some, to again steal a phrase from Sam, but we've got some belters. Like we've got some absolute belters. They knowledgeable, they care. There's quite a few of them who are old Priorians, so that's what we call our old boys. So they were at the school from the junior school, the prep school, right through to 18. So they got kids in the school. There is a family that is, they've got generations of kids, and one of the lads is teaching there. He's got his boy in kind of what we call lower four, so year 8. And they really care about what happens at the school. One of the best things about the school is just the community. So, our sport kind of brings that and gives that gel to it, but none more so than rugby. Like we had a Friday night lights against the Windsor boys in the Daily Mail Trophy. And it was a bit of a damp squib. I think we ended up 42-0 at half time. So what we had to do was I took all the best players off and mixed guys around and whatever, and it ended up quite a good game. I think we ended up winning 56-19, but it ended up with we got a game and it was really good. Our boys were just excellent. Like, it wasn't like Windsor were rubbish. They weren't at all, actually. They were really good, but we're lucky enough to have some really good players who, and then that first half, just, they caught us on the day where just everything went to hand. All our decisions were great. Set piece was amazing, and it was just bang, 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 and it was like, oh my God, like, how do I wasn't okay. How do I make this game last 70 minutes? I've got like boys on the bench. I want to give them at least half a game. And so we managed to do that. So I think, but the point, like, what that game is Friday night lights. We're lucky we've got floodlights at our fields. A game which were the old Priorian community and the headmaster and the bursar were supportive of that and got those installed in our first team pitch. But we're lucky in the sense that we can then just get people down. So we had our 16s as a curtain raiser. The first team then played, and we, finger in the air, but I reckon there was probably 400 or 500 people there, but old Priorians, parents. What was brilliant is our Form 3, our Year 7s were there, our Year 8s were there, low 4s were there, the upper 4s were there. And it was great because they were watching some of our top end boys who are Academy League players, at Saints. We got one at Saints, one at Saracens, one at, we're really privileged in what we build. But what's brilliant about it is that those boys, those kids, and the girls actually as well, when you're thinking of cross sport, the impact of it, they're getting to watch that. This is what it's about. I want to be like that. I want to do that.
Yeah,
And it might be the best thing it might be the only thing that they ever do, but who cares? To give them that one once in a lifetime opportunity, brilliant.
And that aspiration that you're providing for those children is brilliant, isn't it? They want to become part of it. You're building that club atmosphere, that ethos around. I want to be, when I'm in the upper six, I want to be going on tour to South Africa, and I want to be playing under lights. And talking about aspiration and Zoran, we've reflected a little bit back on what happened last half term. What does the second half of this term look like for you in terms of the Daily Mail Trophy? And you've got some tough old fixtures coming up. What is the aspiration for you and the rest of the guys at St Benedict's?
Well, I always take the boys set their own kind of goals, season goals, and then we kind of chunk that up into mid-term goals, sort of half-term goals, pre-season goals. And I kind of really insist the boys lead that. I mean, obviously we're in the back of the room trying to guide them through some of the conversations are tough to hear sometimes, but you're trying to teach them about how you go through that process. What does a process, and it's not just sport, what does a process of trying to achieve something look like? Setting goals, reflection, review, adjustments, and then go again, and then that constant kind of cycle that we go, and we do that with the boys a lot, a lot. Mainly senior end. We don't kind of do that too much lower down. That's kind of is less kind of focused on that. They're more focused on just go and play and whatever and just learn the game. But when they get to our first team and second team and sort of the 16A start creeping in, we try and get them to think now, right, you can play the game, you're good players. How do you now stretch, challenge? How do you improve? Where do we go? So try and shift that a lot onto the boys. So their goals were, and I was laughing because we're sitting fifth, but the goal was to be in the top 20 at the end of the season. Because I think we finished last year, we had 2 really weak years, poor performing years, where I think we finished like 70th, 80th or whatever. Last year, we underperformed a wee bit. We should have finished kind of higher than we did, but I think we finished like 37th, but we should have finished higher. So the boys set themselves a target of top 20. So, right, I was expecting you to be good, but we've actually kind of exceeded where we should be, which is brilliant. It's kind of amazing. So we're actually going to start, we've got a half-term camp tomorrow and Thursday and Friday because we play I was going to call it NatWest Trophy, but I'll get in trouble for that. The Continental Tires National Plate round, first Wednesday back. So we always do a kind of little bit of training in the second half of term, just because the breather of 10 days, 2 weeks, bearing in mind Wednesday, we don't play on that last Saturday. So Wednesday's our last training session of that first half term. 2 weeks is kind of a nice breather for everyone. Boys are knackered, we're knackered, everyone needs a break and no one wants to talk to each other. But now we're all kind of at that 2-week break. We're all re-energized and to go again. So tomorrow we will kind of meet and chat and re-establish goals and kind of celebrate. The other thing is to celebrate what we have done. I would say it's actually what the boys have done, celebrate what the boys have done and reset goals. So in terms of what the goals are, I have no idea. Because actually I think the boys already achieved it. There are some tougher fixtures. We've got, although I think the Hampton game might end up, without counting chickens, if we're successful on the first Wednesday, we might end up playing them in the regional final and the national plate at home. So that might end up not being the Daily Mail Trophy game because we might end up just using that as a one-off game. And I don't know how that will work. But outside of that, we have got some tough things. We've got to play St John's Leatherhead. Reed's decent. I think Streety's doing a brilliant job over there in his first year. But I would hope that kind of we would definitely finish. Now we're here. We want to finish in the top 5. Now we're in the party. Let's go and enjoy the party and do it in the right way, playing the right stuff. I think in terms of like the rugby programs, I think there's so many guys doing some really cool work with a lot of the boys out there, and there are some really strong rugby players coming out of the systems in the schools. And some of the skill levels are insane. I mean, I know a bit about you, Phil. I can't remember if I sent you the photo of us in the very first ever Exeter Bath University.
You did, yeah, you did.
Did I send it? We're both in there. Phil looks a lot young. Oh, and actually, you haven't changed. I actually look well old compared to what I looked back then. But the skill levels compared to kind of even then, and that was circa 97 or whatever it was. They're just insane. Like the boys can do stuff that Carlos Spencer could do back in the day, that you used to marvel at and go, how do you do that? How do they do that? And what they can do now is just incredible. And their intent to play, their courage to take on risk. Sometimes they got to dampen that down a wee bit. I think, especially if you want them to go in the adult game, you kind of you want them to get picked and stuff. And those are sort of the coach killers that will stop you getting picked. But I think just there's so much experience and wealth of expertise and knowledge in places like Wellington, Northampton, our place. We got a number of level 3 coaches, a lot of people who played National League or better. It's no wonder that the kids do get the opportunity to kind of really fulfill potential.
Yeah.
And enjoy playing.
Yeah, I can reflect on that from my time at Dulwich and thinking, Sam Howard and Simon Thomas on the A's, and then we had, James Hanks on the 16s, me on the 15s, and you had players who played National League rugby coaching the under 12 A's, and it wasn't just the senior team that they were coaching. That coaching was being spread across the school, and I think you're right. You've only got to look around the coaching teams and who's director of sport and who's head of rugby. At Clifton, you got Matt Salter, Danny Grewcock. Any school you name, they've got first class rugby coaches. And I think that's two things. Number one, schools must be a decent place to work, even though I jumped out and got the other way. But secondly, that professionalisation of the game at the top end, players are now retiring and realising they want to give back and come and work in schools and give to really, really good rugby programs. You'll be coming up against some schools with some good coaches in over the next half term. Shiplake, St John's Leatherhead,
Yeah.
John Fisher, Hampton, Tiffin. So it's going to be a tough run in for you, Zoran and the boys.
Yeah, yeah, it will be. All you can ask for the boys is just work really hard, concentrate, and be the best versions of themselves. And if we are, we'll have a really successful half term. And actually, quite a lot of it. Whilst if anyone who knows me well, they'll know that I love winning. But what's more important than that, actually, and probably kind of matured as I got older, is just the performance levels. I just want to see the boys just play brilliantly. Because actually, if they do that and they're the best, they're the best version of themselves and execute well, concentrate on what they do, support each other and work hard, they'll play well. And more often than not, experience tells me that we'll win more often than not. And if you win more than you lose in your fixture season, then that's a good season. Hopefully, we win a hell of a lot more than we lose. And, we finish as far up this Daily Mail Trophy and get as far as we can in the national plate. And it'll be, although we play every year against Hampton, like I kind of love that fixture for obvious reasons. I spent a decade of my life there, working there. Rusty probably would have had the similar experience when he was with KCS and going there. You kind of just love going there or playing them. It's a nice challenge because they're really good. They're strong. They're clever boys. They're well adjusted and they're quick thinking. So yeah, and I love that challenge. So we haven't overcome that challenge yet, but we'll keep trying. So yeah, I think so this half term is going to be really, really exciting. Really exciting.
Brilliant. Listen, Zoran, you've been really, really generous for your time, mate. Thank you so much. We wish you all the very best. Zoran, listen, you've been around the school game for a long time and done a great job. So everybody over at St Benedict's is lucky to have you leading that program across there. And
Thank you.
those players are clearly benefiting from your knowledge of the wide game. It was definitely a strength of yours in your day. Keep doing what you're doing because it's fantastic, and those boys are lucky to have you over there. But you've been so generous for your time. We really appreciate it. Enjoy working hard with those boys tomorrow. We will hopefully be down and take a fixture in along the way because it'd be great to come down and see you guys at Benny's.
You're more than welcome. I'd be upset if you don't come.
Well, we
Thank you
definitely
for
will.
having me. Thanks for having
We
me on
definitely
today.
will.
It's been fun. Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Cheers, mate.
No worries, mate. Well, listen, hopefully we'll get you on towards the end of the season if you stay in that top 5.
Yeah, let's see. Fingers crossed.
Brilliant. All right, guys, listen, looking forward to getting back to the rugby next week and getting everyone back into the Daily Mail Trophy. He's been large. He's above me. He's been Zoran Higgins, great as he always is, even though he looks like he should be in the Oasis band this weekend with the way he's looking at the moment. But Zoran, we love you. Thanks for being with us. Have a great afternoon. Like and subscribe to the pod, guys, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Cheers.
Cheers, boys. Thanks a lot.